Hi, everybody, and welcome. We are here with Kelly Wheadon from WFG, going to be talking about insurance, critical insurance and life insurance, how important it is. And we do have some guests here on the other side of the table, which you won't be able to see them, but you may hear them ask some questions. Hopefully, that's kind of the idea. And what's wonderful, we might actually be able to have some really cool discussions with regards to everything that's going on. And we also have our friend Charlene, who is a colleague of Kelly's as well. So I've met Kelly through your Holistic Earth event. We were both part of that community.
Yes.
And what's really neat with that is we're really trying to educate people on different ways other than maybe the generic straightforward way of how we can help support each other. And this is kind of how we ended up here today.
Yes.
And so Kelly's been participating at some of our different events that we've had here, like our Fall into Wellness Fair that we had in October. And he was great to bring some information with regards to the disability tax credit that's available, because that comes up quite a lot in conversation. And we get asked about funding and all that sort of thing all the time. So I'm going to switch it over to the share so we can actually start seeing the presentation. And I am going to send it off. Share. Why isn't it sharing? Come on. Oh, look, we're having technical difficulties already. Let's see. Share should come right up. Oh boy. I'm just going to put you on pause for a second. Okay, so we are going to start this slideshow right from the start. There we go. Okay, so I am going to pass this all over to Kelly, and then we'll come back and have a conversation.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good.
All right.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Lisa Adams and, Caregivers Alberta for this workshop. It's all about education and just sharing information with people. So again, my name is Kelly Wheadon, and I'm a Senior Marketing Director with World Financial Group. I've been doing that for just a little over 3.5 years. And it's really interesting to talk about, is your cup protected? And it's definitely, it was definitely a title that kind of caught a lot of people's eyes. And I even thought for myself, what does that really mean, actually? Why did I do that? And I even actually had the colleague here, Charlene, kind of question it and ask me, what does that mean? And I like the fact that it makes you think. So what is your cup? And for me, my cup represents my family. So the picture here, that is my wife, Michelle, plug to her, that, she is the person that I want to protect. My family is who I want to protect. Our friends and family are who we want to protect. I like to say even just human beings. So that is who our cup is. So many of you are caregivers of someone, whether it's a family member, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your children, whether it's your neighbors, our aging parents. Everybody is taking care of somebody. So my journey truly began when my older sister, at the age of 38, passed away 5 years ago without insurance. And I got to see that impact it had on my parents. And I saw not only the emotional impact, but it was that financial impact. But I also saw how a funeral home was a business. And my parents really actually protected me from a lot of the other things that happened. So I take it upon my mission now to just get to know my friends and family more, to see how can we be more protected, how they don't have to go through some of the struggles that we went through on the financial side. So I was always thinking that my sister and I were close, but it was more of the surface conversations. Growing up, how things were, we never really got into those meaningful, deep conversations, which I really wish we would have. It was more of a, hey, I'll see you after Christmas, or, hey, how are you doing? How's work going? I never asked her if she had insurance, but I assumed she was covered through work. However, she passed 3 to 4 days, as far as I know, before her benefits actually kicked in. So she was not actually covered. So we always think that people are taken care of, we have something through work, things like that. But do you really? So going on to the next slide, the stigma is, we talk about mental health, and that's now a conversation that more and more people are really starting to talk about. And those are the things that the stigma now of financial health. People maybe are not as good as they think they are, or we think they are. So
Kelly, I just want to interrupt you here right now because as you know, mental health is my gig.
Yes.
It is what I truly believe in. I talk about it on stages and I try to empower people. And one of the cool things, because you touched on mental health, stigma, and financial health and how they all kind of go together, I really hope that you also touch on how there's insurances for mental health, because a lot of people think if they've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, PTSD, there's automatically no coverage. And for me as a military family,
yes,
PTSD is very prominent in our household. So is secondary PTSD for our family because of my husband deploying and being hurt in Afghanistan. So I really hope that that's a part of the conversation that you're going to have today too.
You betcha. That will be, I'll have that in there somewhere.
Fair enough.
So the biggest thing is the stigma with financial health. It's not about, we're disclosing to each other our credit card debts or lines of credits or things like that. It's nothing like that. It's, are you protected? Do you have things in place? What would happen if you got sick, injured, if you passed away? Are your family members, are your loved ones going to be taken care of? So I actually had a client that was diagnosed with cancer, and we were going through a lot of things. I was just spending some time with her, and she was talking about going to see her family over the holidays. I was like, great, I have an office in Red Deer, so that's awesome. Have they sat down with someone? What do they have in place? And she's like, I don't know. I don't even know what my daughter has. And I thought for a moment, you yourself are going through an illness. What happens to you? But why don't you know? So, and then we talk about kids. So that's another one. I'm going to go over here with insurances, the different types. There's critical illness, there's disability or income replacement coverage, life insurance, living benefits, things like that. So it's a lot of different insurances that are out there. And people that, are healthy, yes, it is better to get insurance when you're healthy. I'm not going to lie. We can't guarantee what's going to happen, but there are coverages out there for everybody. Canada Protection Plan is a company that can actually protect military people, military family outside of CISIP, which is a program through the military. But CPP also will ensure that they will protect anybody.
And I think Canada. It's really important also to note that CISIP kind of runs out when
you're 65.
Yes. And some of them doesn't continue after they're veterans, other than what they had insured through the military aspect of things too.
And it's usually a 5-year term that increases every 5 years.
Right. So my husband is just about to retire from the military and being medically released. So we're learning lots about insurances and what CISIP covers right now. So, this is really important for those RCMP personnel as well as military personnel, firefighters, first responders, because this is a part of their package and their insurances that they get through their plans as well, which is similar to what CISIP is.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and not knowing it's a disadvantage. We can't use that as an excuse. Well, I didn't know. I didn't have that. I didn't know. We get a huge booklet that we're all supposed to read, and probably 99% of people don't. I was an employee. So I never read my coverages and things like that. But that's why we talk about, stopping that cycle is getting to know people, getting to know what coverages you actually do have through work. Another prime example is I had a friend who I didn't even know at the time, but 10 years ago, her husband was diagnosed with cancer and was just not feeling well, couldn't feel anything, went to the hospital, diagnosed with cancer. Next day, getting a letter from workplace saying that they don't have short-term disability. They blew through all their savings and things like that. And she had to go to surgery. Like, it was just that quick. So even through we feel work's going to cover us, it's not always the case. That's why it's important to, yes, I want to be able to help everybody and serve everybody, but meet someone that you like, know, and trust. Get to know what products and services that they do have, because not every company is going to have something for everybody. But everybody's needs are also different. So you kind of have to find what fits best for you.
And I love this conversation because what the viewers don't know is that there's two gentlemen from RBC that are sitting in the room that also work with insurances. But one of the key things that I think is amazing that you said, and I use the terminology or the conversation with regards to if you go to a psychic fair and there's 100 psychics there and 400 people walk through the room, everybody's going to walk and go to that psychic that they feel drawn to or they have that comfortable relationship with. And it's no different than finding the right advisor.
Yes.
As well. So, you know, Kelly, you may not actually fit the client that Rohan may not fit. And if I was insurance as well, you two may have a different clientele or energy based on the person that would be attracted to me. And I think it's really important that if it's no different than if you go to mental health for therapy, you have an opportunity to interview your therapist.
Yeah.
It's no different than interviewing your insurance broker, really, right? And is that fair to say?
Essentially, everybody's interviewing everybody.
Right.
I mean, we want to help. And I like the fact that not only us, but you gentlemen too are searching more knowledge. You're going to events to seek out your own knowledge to be able to help your clients better. And we do the same thing. And I think that's a fascinating thing. You don't just get stuck with what's being put in front of you. You're actually outsourcing and building those relationships. And I think that's a very important thing in all realms, from the mental health to the financial health, is maybe I might not be able to help everybody as I sit down with them, but I love to go, you know what, I can't help you here, but I'm going to send you over there. Like, as brokers, we have an extreme amount of companies that we can deal with, but I still want to be able to outsource. I still want to help as many people as possible by having as much in the back pocket, like as much tools in the tool belt as you can get. A lot of things here. So this was going to be a very interactive moment. So everybody that's online watching this, if you are in a room with people, turn to your neighbor, ask them if they have insurance. Get to know them on a personal level. We as human beings need to know more of a purpose of what we're doing here. And we're here to love and serve each other. So why are we not knowing depths of who we are as people? And by asking those questions, we get to know ourselves better. So Lisa has, asked me questions, and I can say I'm an open book. However, does that mean I'm always going to be comfortable with questions that are asked of me or to me? Probably not. I don't know unless they're asked.
I will tell you, I've asked you some pretty uncomfortable questions, haven't I?
Since day one.
Since day one. Right? Really, since day one. And it's true. But I think that the only way that we can learn about different insurances, who's out there to ask these different questions, finding the proper person, is asking those questions. And it's okay to be uncomfortable.
It is. I think we get into a comfort zone and we get stuck, and then we just start to float. And then we get into the mist, People don't really realize what their options are. There's healthy candidates, there's already diagnosed conditions, people that already have a disability, but there are income replacement coverages out there, and there's, potentials of return of premiums, things like that. But really getting into the myths of the discussion is, a lot of people think, well, it's too expensive, or I'm not going to qualify, so why even bother looking, or they don't even pay out. Now, yes, critical illness is one of the more expensive coverages because it's more of a guarantee that someone's going to get sick. Statistically, 1 out of 3 people are going to get heart disease, or 1 out of 4, and then 1 out of 3 people are going to get cancer. So there's 5 people in this room. If we had 1 more, at least 2 people would actually. So there's 1.5 people here are going to get cancer. It's probably going to be me because my family history. But anyways, that's another thing. Yeah, I digress. So, and sometimes there's so many things out there. So people get that paralysis by analysis. They don't know where to go, who to talk to. Google is not always your friend. Don't Google MD anything. Sorry,
I agree.
Sorry, Google.
No, I agree. So I have a question that's kind of popping into my head. I have a girlfriend who work insurance declined her based on her family history because unfortunately her father had death by suicide. And with that automatically put her in a bracket of not being able to get insurance. And she is in her 30s.
I would say I put it like maybe a high risk factor potentially. However, a lot of companies will also they'll look at the family history, but they're also going to look at hers. Does she have mental health problems? Is she on medications? What is her situation?
Right.
Like, my mother is a breast cancer survivor. And at the age of 74, she also thought, I'm never going to get insurance. It's going to be too expensive, things like that. I got her insurance last year.
Right.
She's paying less than I am for car insurance.
Right.
Which means I really need to look at my car insurance. But that's the thing, is you just never know.
Right.
So even though you get declined from one company, definitely go talk to somebody else. Just because you got declined by one company does not mean that you're going to be declined by everybody. However, that might mean you are going to be a higher risk factor, so you may potentially have to pay more. But you don't know unless you really talk to people. You talk to a broker, talk to someone that has been in the industry and knows what their products are, because there's so many different avenues and factors, and us as agents can actually talk to our companies and kind of, we're your lawyer. We're going to appeal for you. We're going to talk on your behalf. So sometimes that might be a benefit for you.
Mm-hmm. And especially, again, I'm going back to first responders, military personnel, because a lot of times there are multiple people in the household that are going through mental health options. Not everybody, including the military personnel and first responders, are actually being diagnosed with the mental health aspect of things. But a lot of us are scared to even talk about it because we feel that we're going to get hammered in insurance or whatever, that, and we won't be able to get it. So it's scary. Or again, with history, we have a lot of caregivers with dementia, and we know that dementia can be genetic. Cancer can be genetic. Multiple sclerosis can be genetic. Heart disease, diabetes, all these different things can be generational. But now knowing that there's opportunities for discussions with regards to insurances, I think is really important. And I'm so glad we're having this discussion today.
Well, and a huge thing too is preventative maintenance. So when we talk about what are you doing to make sure you are taking a healthier road. So parts of your holistic earth is that self-care. That is a huge thing. Us as advisors as well, we sit and we talk to a lot of people too, and we go through so many, it's not always, not going to say horrible conversations, but hard conversations with people. And it can be very emotional and energetically draining.
Right.
So that self-care is when you're talking about someone that's got a history of bad health or parents or this, what was their lifestyle? And then what is your lifestyle? If you're a person that's got, MS history, maybe you might get it, maybe you might not. But if you're a person who's now smoking and drinking and you're not eating right, you're already classed as a higher risk person. But if you take care of yourself, you go to the gym regularly, do the things we're supposed to be doing, that could potentially benefit you even more. There are three things that can happen with insurances. You can be, approved, declined, or rated. And a rating can actually be you're healthier, you're actually going to get better premiums, or sorry to say, you're actually a higher risk, you're going to pay a little bit more. So you never know unless you actually just sit down and go through the work. Biggest thing is taking action. Everything is about a call to action, and people don't want to know sometimes, so they just avoid it. Procrastination.
But I think that happens a lot, especially when they think that there's an illness, right?
Right.
Specifically, how do you guys like going to the doctors?
Yeah, I like my doctor.
Oh, see, I'm not a fan of going to the doctors, right? Like that to me, I've had bad experiences. My doctor yawns a lot and it's just not very engaging. So for me, I'm just like, I'll just rather go to a clinic if something's really bad. But they don't automatically things are getting better medically to take on to history and that sort of thing. But you're right. It's no different than somebody who is, in a domestic abuse relationship. Sometimes we go back because it's just easier to stay.
Just easier.
Right? So not that they don't know that it's not a place that we can make slow changes and work on building our self-confidence and empowering ourselves. But we just think that if we have to take action, that's more work. And we really don't know what the result is. But if we stay where we're at now, we know exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. So it comes back to that stepping into your comfort zone, but then also talking to someone. Yes, we love our friends and family. However, are they the professionals in this type of an industry? If they are, great. sit and talk with them. However, knowing that you're in the mental health realm, but the fact I'm not going to talk to, my best friend who has nothing to do with mental health to give me advice. Unfortunately, we shouldn't take financial advice either, or illness coverages from people who don't know about the industry or don't even have it themselves. And that's a big thing. Like, I'm not going to go talk to a military personnel that isn't part of the military. I'd rather talk to Lisa because she's very familiar with that. Her husband's there. She's been immersed into that. So those are the biggest things. So when they talk about too that maybe insurance won't pay out unless you've lied on your application, most of our companies are going to be 99%. They're going to be.
So let's talk about what a payout is, because, and the reason why I'm asking this is because, unfortunately, I've seen people pass away through the military.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends whose spouses were killed in action. And one of the things that happened when that actually went down was, even though they had insurances, we'll use the mortgage for an example. They weren't going to pay off the mortgage because he was killed in action. And I know things have changed since then because there's a lot of upheaval with regards to that. But what exactly does a payout mean? Because not everybody understands what an insurance payout is and what does that look like. And when you say some will pay out, 90% of them do, and 10% don't, like, what does that mean?
So say we're to put through an application, and as we're going through the application, I'm going to ask you a bunch of medical questions. So if you disclose to me that you are a non-smoker, but I'm looking at ashtrays all around you and I'm like, are you sure? And we put non-smoker. Well, that's bad on my part, but that means you have actually lied on your application. So that means that if you were to pass away, no money is going to be going to your beneficiary. Now, if everything goes through in the application and we've answered everything to the best of our abilities, something has happened to you. So if we're going with a critical illness, that if you were diagnosed with one of the 25 conditions, so heart attack, stroke, coma, blindness, things like that, you will get and receive a tax-free lump sum payout of whatever the policy was set up for. Yeah. So then kind of, did you know that critical illness, so now, is that provides a tax-free lump sum payout or paid to you as to whatever the policy was. So if we set up a policy for $50,000, $50,000 tax-free will be given to you to either help with treatment or help you to fly family in so that they can stay with you. Or if you want to go to treatment in Mexico, you are more than welcome to go and do that. But the biggest thing is, did you know that starting and covering your children at a younger age is so beneficial?
Yes. So this is a conversation you and I had previously with regards. A lot of people don't think of insuring their kids with critical insurance. And every year they come home at the beginning of the school year with the life insurance policy from the school that you want to insure your kids, and we all just go recycling bin, right? Yep. Honestly. But what are the advantages of starting to insure your child, say at 5 years old, or even when they're first born? Because we don't even think about when they're first born to start putting critical insurance on them. But what is the benefits of doing that? Especially, our conversations, and we can kind of lead there, but, starting at newborn or 5 years old and having insurance on them, and then what happens if something occurs? So I have a girlfriend, I'll use my girlfriend right now. I don't know if they have insurance or not on their children, but her daughter is 15 years old and she has terminal cancer. So, what would that look like if she from newborn had insurance, critical insurance?
So a lot of our companies, they can go as low as 15 days old. And you don't want to, if you want to say, put the energy out there that something's going to happen to your family or to your children. But what it is you're insuring their insurability. So essentially you are putting a policy on them. So God forbid that they did get sick. So if your friends there had insurance on their daughter, what would happen now is if it was a $50,000 policy, at that time of terminal diagnosis, the family would get $50,000 to, if it's terminal, go on a family vacation, to go spend that time with their family and not have to think of the financial impact it's going to have. They could go seek other treatment in other countries if they wanted to. If they wanted to fly family in to be at her hospital bedside, they can do things like that. I actually do have a slide here that does show information on that. So, it can also be funding of unpaid leave for a spouse. I realized I just put it in my notes. That's probably why.
Oh.
You can hire a nanny to take care of the other children while you're at the hospital with your daughter or your son. So there's so many things.
So I love that you just touched on this, and I want to touch on it a little bit more, because as caregivers, we get a lot of phone calls coming in about financial support. So critical insurance would give amount of money, what you're saying, for you to stay home and take care of your loved one because they're ill.
Yes.
And is it at the same rate that you would get where you were working, or is it just based on that one lump sum?
Just whatever that lump sum is.
Right. So for an example, if it was $50,000, it would possibly be 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year.
And that would only be your wages for that 1 year.
Yeah.
Specifically. Okay. No, I think this is important, because this is definitely an area of ignorance for me, but also it's an area that I have so many caregivers calling in because they are in a financial situation. And I'm sure you guys see it at the banks a lot, because we do have, unfortunately, we have clients who are losing their homes.
Yep.
We have clients that are losing their jobs because they're trying to support and take care of their loved one, and their children are on top of it, and their parents, and so on and so forth. So I think it's important to really touch base on this a little bit deeper if you can.
Well, go on.
So I know a few life insurances for kids that come with an automatic rating because they are under 18. Is that the same with critical illness for kids as well?
Honestly, I've never experienced that they would get an automatic rating. Basically, they get an auto approval. As long as health-wise, it's been pretty good and quite low premiums. The younger you start, the lower your premiums are. My age, I'm not saying my age online, but I'm over 30, put it that way. No. It's going to be more expensive. As long as you're, I don't smoke, I don't drink. Socially, I do. Sorry, mom, dad. But, it's those things. It's the healthier you are, the better. So when you start younger, you can put the plans like ensuring the insurability. So I've got a couple friends that, we had been talking about insurances for their kids. And one of them, their son got really, really sick. They thought he had a common cold. And it started to progress. They thought he had the flu. And they ended up finding out he was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And that is very expensive. Insulin for type 1 diabetes is very expensive. So these types of lump sum payouts can help with a lot of the medical treatments and things like that. So, and I mean, there's products out there too that can allow investments, so that can allow your kids to actually have something in retirement or help pay for schooling or their first house. So you can set kids up better than our own parents have set us up. Or, we want to leave more for our family, but if something was to happen to us or them, it's putting a financial burden on us. But that financial burden causes a lot more stress, which causes a lot more illness. So then it comes kind of a twofold. As a parent, your child's sick and you're wanting to be there for them, but you have to go to work because you can't afford to take the time off. And that's where a lot of people struggle, and it's scary. One of the gentlemen from our office, his grandchild was born premature. He thankfully had enough funds to be able to say, I want you to stay home and take care of my daughter and your child. He was able to pay for that, but they also, if they didn't have insurances in place, wouldn't be able to do that. So we think about, if you had a machine in your basement and it pumped out $100,000 or $500,000 all the time, you would be maintaining that thing, you would be oiling it, you would make sure you had maintenance there every time, you would take care of it. That machine is you. So why are we not eating better? Why are we not exercising better? Why are we not insuring ourselves? We have to get car insurance because we have to. Not everybody wants to, and that's going up too. So why are we not insuring that most important mechanical machine, which is us?
So for how long is the kids' health locked in? What is the term for the critical illness for kids?
It depends on what we put on them. So a couple products we could do up to the age of 65, up to the age of 75. A couple products that we have that can actually do after 65, there's a living health benefit so that they can actually access tax-free money while they are still living. So critical illnesses, most of them can go up to 65, 75, like I said. But if they had something that they could access after 75, a living health benefit, they could take out money. and do it that way.
And from our conversation previous with regards to that, because I had spoken to you
Yeah.
with regards to this too, you had mentioned that they have to make sure that that premium is constantly paid as well.
Yes.
So whatever that insurance payment is still needs to happen, say when they're adult and they're not living in our home anymore and we're not taking care of that,
Yeah.
unless we still want to. But when you're an adult, you can take on your own responsibilities as far as I'm concerned. But it's also ensuring that over that time period that the policy doesn't lapse.
That is correct. So as a parent, you have invested interest, and of course, in your children. So you can put a policy on your child, you make the payments, and as the child becomes an adult, you can switch it over into their name. They can keep it going, or they can decide not to. I mean, we're going to recommend that they keep it because it's better for them, but essentially they can actually move it over to their
And the
kids.
premiums are locked in
And the premiums are locked in
up
Yeah.
to age 65.
up to the age 65.
So in other words, if it costs $20 when they're 15 days old, when they're 70, it'll still cost $20?
Yes.
Wonderful.
And it can be set up so that it's paid till 65 or paid till 30. So it would obviously cost more if it was only paid till 30,
Right.
Yeah.
as if it was paid till 65.
Right.
And then you don't have to worry about the adult children.
Right. Because then it'll be already done.
Yeah.
That premium will be cost.
So yeah, if you feel maybe your child won't be as responsible as you would like them to be, you can do what's called a pay up option. So like Charlene was saying, is you pay a little extra and you cover it till the age of 25, 30. They take it over at 30. It's already been paid for. So they just keep it going. They don't have to pay anymore.
Right.
So those are some great options. So kind of a great slide here we have. It's Q&A.
Right. So, and I guess, so we really spoke a lot about critical insurance.
Yes.
So let's kind of backtrack a little bit about life insurance.
Okay.
So for an example, we have that loved one that we're taking care of, and maybe to get critical insurance would be extremely difficult, very costly, but we have the opportunity to look at life insurance. What does that look like?
So depending on a person's kind of health history or kind of what they're going through right now, we as brokers have the opportunity to go, okay, I know you're super healthy, Lisa. We're going to go with certain companies. Or your history is a little, you can say, marked.
Problematic?
Yes, problematic. Hereditary, like mine. And we can say, you know what, you're not healthy right now. You're going through some things. It would allow us to go to different companies. So
Right.
One of them is Canada Protection Plan. They've been really good for everything. That's kind of who my mom went through because of her previous diagnoses.
Right.
I've also, one of the companies I used who is a little bit harder to get insurance with, I had a lady who was diagnosed with breast cancer. She ended up just getting off of her medication. She did have one of her breasts removed, and she was able to get standard approved. So that's why you can say you're going through something, but you could still get coverage. There are still possibilities.
Right. And I think that's really important for our caregivers to hear that, because a lot of times we're not just a caregiver, we're a care receiver as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll talk about my own house is, my husband has PTSD. I have fibromyalgia. I've gone through a back injury and I've had a TBI. So right there, we're caregiving for each other.
Yep.
And then, I have 2 kids with ADHD. One lives at home, one doesn't, and one had a learning disability. I will tell you, he's 22, graduated from high school on his own, and is in the moment looking to purchase his first home because we taught him about investments from a young age. So he's ready at 22 to purchase his own home. And in Edmonton, that is not very probable, I will tell you. So, very proud as a mama. But I've also had him come talk to you.
Yep.
With regards to insurances and stuff like that, because I think it's important that he learns about critical insurance.
Yes, and he came with a stack of paper and saying, this is my health concerns. And I was like, all right, love how you're organized. And it was awesome because he was organized like that and so open and honest. We got him approved with one of the toughest companies. And that's one of the best benefits is he can put insurances in place. We just have to look around. We just have to ask those questions to get to know our clients even better. Another thing is when people someone with ADD or ADHD or PTSD, there are things, registered disability savings plans. So people can actually get money from the government for being disabled. So kudos to being disabled sometimes. You know, you don't ever want to have that stigma, but why not benefit from it?
Right. And of course, this is a conversation we had before we came on air and before everybody else got here. But one of the big things that I really like to have conversations is diversity. And one of the key parts that I found really intriguing that I was asking questions about, I have a brother-in-law who is gay. I have friends that are transgender and everything else. And my questions were, when you go to get insurances, you know, how does that look? What does it look like? Do you have to put, so we'll use an example, being transgender for an example. How do you identify? Because you have he, she, and there today. And what does that look like?
That's a good one. So I've been going through a lot of that. Most applications are gender at birth. Now, a person who is transitioning has to be aware of that. Now, some people will not, what they call, bring up their dead name or have the ability to say, I was actually born female. They come in, they present very male. So us as advisors, we have to be okay to ask those hard questions and make it so there are ways to do it so that it's not invasive. Say it's sex at birth.
Right.
And when I say sex at birth, it is, were you born a female or were you born a male?
Right. And I think we had a conversation too previous, because these were questions that I had coming up. And I think you made a really valid point when you said that there was a young person who identified female, who was 12.
No, they identified male.
Oh, sorry. Identified male.
Identified male. They went to the hospital.
They were 12, right?
12 years old. Dad was calling him. They went to the hospital. Kid had some abdominal pains. So this is something somebody told me. And I was like, interesting. They were female. What they were having was cramps, PMS. But the doctors and nurses did not know that because they did not disclose that information. So in a sense, someone who's going through transition has to be aware that people aren't going to know. And if we are on medication, testosterone or hormone blockers or anything like that, if we do not disclose that information, we could be given a medication that could also react with something or could do us harm. I mean, there's so many things. Like, we have one of the companies that it'll go, the gender you deem you are, others are sex at birth. So I'm challenging this in a sense of, how do you classify gender you are? Is it once someone goes through therapy, once someone's on medications, once they're transitioned? How do you determine that? Because I'll say it, a male can come in and go, oh, females pay cheaper insurance, I identify female. Now, as an advisor, can we actually really fight that? Because now, and it's a whole nother realm.
Right.
So that's where, being an advocate for the LGBTQ2S community, it's being able to educate people. And that's what a lot of this is. And I really appreciate, you doing these types of workshops, not only on critical illness, but it's about, for everybody in the room to be able to say, well, I did not know that, or I know something about that, and then give some more information. We need to educate everybody.
Well, and I agree. And what a great opportunity to change some of the stigma that's happening out there, especially in the insurance world. Because number one, a lot of people who, no matter, again, what sexuality, what gender you are, what illness, disability that you have, we talk about accessibility and disability as well. And we have education sessions coming up with that. And, there is stigma around that as well. And that is not okay either, as far as I'm concerned. The best way that we can change stigma through mental health, through illness, through insurance, is by having these sometimes hard conversations. And one of the conversations that we had earlier is, again, about communication. Yeah. And the communication is not always going to be easy. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And if you're an agent, if you're like an advisor, like, you guys are financial and insurance advisors. I'm a caregiver advisor, and I have an opportunity to really educate and advocate to make sure that people are getting the appropriate information out there, so that they know exactly what they're entitled to, what opportunities are out there for them, and just to go ask the questions. Because honestly, if we stay in an ignorant world without knowledge or change, nothing is going to happen. So I'm hoping that our conversation today says, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I should get critical insurance for my kids even to start off with. If we feel it's too late for us, really, let's benefit our kids in some way, but also look at what other possibilities, you know, what a payout is, you know, because I think that's important, how that works, and to set up everybody to have successes in some way is important. So, and then, you know, we had conversations before with regards to having that investment aspect of the kickback of paying your premiums and having it set up so when you retire that you can utilize that money as retirement money as well. And I think these things are all super important. And I would be remiss if I didn't throw that back out there for just to reflect, because I think that our caregivers need to look at it for themselves, their family members, whoever they're caregiving for, and go, okay, are we set up for success with regards to insurance and critical insurance? Or do we have an opportunity to go out and ask an advisor, whether it's you, whether it's Rohan, whether it's Charlene, or how did you? Deluxe. See, I'm sorry. I'm like, I knew I was going to not say it right. But I think it's important that we can sit down and have these conversations and be able to record it. So now it's a part of our resource library. So if somebody goes, okay, I don't know anything about insurances, there's enough here to start the conversation.
Oh, very much so. I mean, we talk about, it's that whole thing is your cup protected? We talk about putting your oxygen mask on first in an airplane. If you are not protected, you cannot take care of other people. So,
how often do we say that here at Caregivers Alberta?
It's the same thing as a mechanic. His car is crap, but everybody else's is fixed.
Right.
Or someone who works in the construction, you know, everybody else's house, renovations are done, but his home is not. Especially ask his wife.
Or, you know, just on a sidebar, and Charlene will vouch for me, or if you have a hairstylist, you always pay attention to what their hair looks like.
Yeah. If you want color done, you go to someone who's got funky colors in their hair.
All right.
So,
even though they don't do it on themselves, right?
Exactly. So that's the thing is,
right.
We are actually ourselves as advisors are caregivers in financial health.
Right.
So that's why the collaboration is such a big thing, because people just don't know what they don't know. But it's a time now with all that education that's out there to not be ignorant anymore.
I agree. And I think it's a great opportunity to realize, again, being uncomfortable is okay, and you need to take action.
Mm-hmm. But it's baby steps. You can take baby steps.
Right.
It doesn't have to all happen at once. And even when we sit down with people, when we put a plan together, it's one thing at a time. You know, we don't want to ever overwhelm people, because finances and critical illness and all this can get very, very scary for a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people just avoid it.
Right.
But it's kind of like having the I'm not going to use that one, the drug talk with your kids. I was going to go somewhere else. I don't want to go
you could
there.
have talked about the sex talk.
The sex talk with the kids. Those are
uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. However, you know, one of the things that I was taught in the industries that I've been in previous is, if an opportunity arises, you take it at that moment. So it wouldn't have mattered if, and my son Alex will vouch for some of the conversations that we've had, if it was in a restaurant and a leeway came up for a conversation, we automatically navigated to that situation. So whether that's out for dinner with a good friend and you go, hey, you know what? I watched this webinar with regards to insurance. Do you have critical insurance? Well, what a great way to start that conversation. And what's your thought of that? Because you're allowed to your perception and your thought process of it. And I encourage it. And when we post this online, I do hope that people do make comments below with their opinions, because I think it's super important that we can get the knowledge and the education based on other people's perspectives. And that doesn't mean that we're all right or we're all wrong, but it's perceptive. And, you know, it would be no different than if we were talking politics and us all having differences of opinion. We hopefully are in a day and age that we can be respectful to each other's opinions and perceptions, but be open to listen so that we can make a wise educated, informed decision. Would that be fair to say?
And it's all about learning from each other.
So I would just like to share one example that I had, and that would help a lot of people relate to what you're speaking about. So when I joined this industry, one of my first clients, business owners making good money, I proposed, they were underinsured from the looks of it straight away, but they did not notice it because they had a very good cash flow, a very good business. The wife was just taking care of the admin, the husband was in the operations. Now next year, she comes into my office. She didn't take anything from me. She didn't take my advice. Next year, she walks into my office, and unfortunately, the husband passed away. Now, she didn't know how to run the business. All she did was the admin. The life insurance was nothing that would support her.
Right.
She had to fire sell the business. She had to withdraw her RSPs because she had to pay salary. And the accounts were sealed because the husband was the primary account holder. So she had to withdraw from her RSPs to pay salaries. So all of a sudden, a very rosy looking family, a very happy looking life was destroyed because they didn't have the right coverage.
And I think that's so important because we've actually had caregivers call in who have been business owners, and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of hooped. My husband passed away, and you know, we can't access anything, and I'm at a point that I physically can't look after the business, so I may have to sell it, and we were hoping to pass it down. So I think that's so important that people are aware of what their insurances need to be, especially if they are a business owner.
And one more thing that I'd like to bring up here is what we talked about, telling lies on the application. So unfortunately, this family, the life insurance they had, the same smoking, non-smoking issue was on the file. But it's not always that the insurance companies don't pay out.
Right.
Yeah.
All the insurance company did was they deducted his premium that would be as a smoker, and they paid the rest of the money.
Right.
So all the horror stories that we hear about insurance companies is when things went terribly wrong.
Right.
It's not always that the insurance companies want to be in the news for the wrong reasons.
For sure.
They want to pay out because that's what they're there for.
Right.
So this was one story where a lot of things happen together. So.
Right. And unfortunately, isn't that usually what happens though? Based on circumstance, a lot of stuff kind of, it hits the fan and then everything goes awry and then we have bad experiences and then it puts that poor taste in our mouth.
Right.
And then we never want to talk to an advisor again. And because we just think that you're out for a profit per se, than actually helping somebody to achieve their necessities. And so,
and you know, each advisor is kind of like their own identity, and they're going to specialize in specific things. And that's why it is important to kind of get to know someone, sit down. And that's what I love. What we do is everybody in this room right now, we're all mobile. So yes, we run out of our offices, but we are also mobile. We're kneecap to kneecap with people, situations like this. And I think we need to get back more to that. Yes, maybe our applications are all online, but if you're not sitting down with someone and having someone ask you questions, how do you fill out an application when you don't even know the stuff yourself? You haven't even been asked the questions. And sometimes applications can be a little confusing and intimidating. So it is good to sit down with someone and have those conversations. So I do have another slide with my contact information, if that's okay to post it. So by all means, if anybody has any questions, click down below, ask the questions. Lisa will either forward them to me or you can reach out to me directly. But any questions, just reach back out to Lisa. And, you know, there's so many things out there that people are just not informed about. And we are here to educate and give peace of mind and give as much information and service to as many people as we can. Ultimately, it's about education and empowerment, right? Like truly, this is what today is about. I thank you guys for coming and being a part of this too. I know it's pretty small. I think it's the time of year, but I think the information and the dialogue and conversation is really important. So thank you. I'm going to come back in the picture here. I'm going to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. And I do hope you find this useful. Comment below. You can send me an email at ladams@caregiversalberta.ca. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.